I want to bring in Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter for Real Clear Politics and CBSN political contributor. A lot of things there. The president pushing for comprehensive background checks, pushing for help for the mentally ill on that, and also saying that he's going to use an executive order to get deal with the bump stock ban. What did you make of that and the fact that he says he wants one bill and not seven?
This was fascinating, just given how we have covered these past few years and how difficult it is to get any gun legislation through. He seemed to be endorsing a lot of different proposals here, which made me wonder if he actually knows what is in some of these legislative offers. The Manchin-Toomey bill that he seemed to be supportive of was really vehemently opposed to by the gun lobbies. I just want to point out the Manchin-Toomey bill, which was pushed for after Sandy Hook in 2013, focused on background checks. Exactly, expanding background checks to gun shows and closing some of these loopholes. And so there were 4 Democrats at the time that voted against that bill. There were only 4 Republicans that voted for it. So that was very interesting to me. We've seen this kind of play before, however. Remember when he held the same kind of style meeting on immigration. That's right. Seemed to be very receptive to a lot of the ideas that were being tossed around, and there were lots of questions about what would come next. Well, we saw what came after that. This is not to diminish this kind of presentation. I think it's very good for the public to see lawmakers talking about this, especially in the wake of having such student activism on this issue, wanting to see their representatives work on this issue. So we'll see where it goes from here. He kind of tasked 4 of those lawmakers who have been very involved on this issue to come up with something. It's just not clear exactly what that would be still. You know, it was fascinating because his explanation for why gun control hasn't been pushed forward was 2 words, essentially, last go-around, Barack Obama. Exactly. But, I mean, for those of us who covered it, you know, last go-around, President Obama was pretty aggressive about trying to get votes out, and it didn't pass. It was a narrow loss on that bill. You're completely right to point that out, and that we've seen this kind of over and over again, that doing something that Obama didn't do or wasn't able to get passed is something that kind of fuels Trump in some of these. He likes to unravel the things that the former president has done, and also do things that his predecessors were not able to do. So he's taking that as kind of an impetus to get something done. But you note exactly right that the former president Obama pushed very hard for Manchin-Toomey, and it still did not get the support it needs. Now, what was interesting is you heard Brian Mast, congressman from South Florida, who lost 2 legs in Afghanistan, who has been pushing for the ban on the assault weapons, which is important because he's a Republican, telling the president that he has a unique credibility on this issue because people are more trusting of him than they are of the former president as it pertains to the Second Amendment. There's also, in polling, we've seen wide support for expanding for universal background checks, and so I think the president is also kind of internalizing all of that. You know, it was also fascinating, Caitlin, when you saw the one person who was affected by gun violence, Steve Scalise, in that room, pushing for conceal and carry, talking about that, and then the president said, not going to pass. Right. That was also a fascinating moment, which kind of, you know, did show that he kind of knows where some of these votes could be, even though he was kind of seeming to endorse a lot of things that Republicans traditionally have not been behind. Congressman Scalise was saying that they did pass that bill last year to enhance the current background system, enforce the laws that are on the books, but that was attached to that Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, and that is how that bill passed. And so he was trying to make the point that this is also an important issue to Republicans and their constituencies on the House side. Again, they're going to, whatever they come up with, will face that dual challenge of getting something through the Senate and also getting it through the House, and you know how invested the president will be in something that will take weeks, I'm sure. We heard him repeatedly say that he can write off and take care of bum stock, do a bum stock ban with an executive order. Right. True? There is a lot of controversy around that because the ATF has ruled on a couple of occasions over the past decade that they were not of the authority to rule on that. And so they're, by doing this by executive order opens up to a lot of legal challenges that could come forth. And that's why you've heard lawmakers on Capitol Hill saying that they want a legislative fix to address this issue so that it is done and they can move on. And there is bipartisan support for that.
When you talked about the gun lobby, we saw Senator Chris Murphy, of course, who represents the state of Sandy Hook, where the Sandy Hook shooting took place in Connecticut. He said that the gun lobby has veto power.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've heard this a lot over the past couple of weeks since this horrific shooting. I would note that, and we've covered Congress, you know that it's more of the Republicans and their constituencies, the members of the NRA, not necessarily only the lobby itself. And so this is what people came to heads with in the last go round of this 5 years ago, which is this pushback from constituents, not only in these congressional districts, but also in some of these states where Democrats represent, states like North Dakota. West Virginia is another example, but Senator Manchin put a lot of his political capital on the line here to push that forward. Looks like he's prepared to do that again on background checks.
There was an interesting exchange on raising the age of purchasing firearms. I want to play that for you.
Yeah.
You can't buy a handgun at 18, 19, or 20. You have to wait till you're 21. But you can buy the gun, the weapon used in this horrible shooting at 18. You are going to decide. The people in this room pretty much are going to decide. But I would give very serious thought to it. I can say that the NRA is opposed to it. And I'm a fan of the NRA. I mean, there's no bigger fan. I'm a big fan of the NRA. They want to do it. These are great people. These are great patriots. They love our country. But that doesn't mean we have to agree on everything.
So what do you think? Do you think he's able to get Republicans to move on this, or is it going to be the president versus Republicans?
Yeah, I don't think there is an appetite among Republicans to move on this, and this might be just a state issue. It was interesting because I've been talking to gun rights groups over the past several days about what they want to see, and they were very troubled by the president bringing up that age requirement earlier on, saying that it strips Americans from their Second Amendment rights. They also noted that he hadn't talked about it in the past couple of days. So him bringing it up again today is significant, but I don't think there is enough support in Congress for that.
You know, when you talk about, you look at how different this scenario is from previous scenarios. You know, he talks about a lot of smack talking with former presidents that they didn't do enough.
Right.
But one thing is that this president he had dinner with members of the NRA. He clearly is open about being close to the NRA.
Yeah.
Do you think that'll make a difference?
Well, he was pointing that out, that he said, look, I sat down with them and I'm prepared to also sit down with you, which is notable. He was saying that, you know, you guys in this room are more scared of the NRA than I am. It is worth noting, though, that the president was backed by the NRA. He has talked very in tough terms about the Second Amendment. He even charged that Hillary Clinton during the campaign would want to strip away the Second Amendment, which is, of course, was false. And so he has, balanced that rhetoric with trying to do something now. There are lawmakers that were trying to tell him that because of his relationship with the NRA, because of his credibility with the Republican base, that he could perhaps provide some political cover for some of his colleagues. We'll see what he does on that. Of course, after the immigration go round, things kind of petered out. And so we'll see whether this momentum continues.
He was also very aggressive about talking about mental health. I want to play a bite from the president talking about mental health.
We have to confront mental health. There's never been a case that I've ever seen. I'm sure everybody.
Do you get the sense that there will be some movement on that?
Well, the president has said that he wants this bill to be comprehensive, so including a lot of different things. I will say that the term comprehensive is something that really deters lawmakers. They're kind of allergic to the term. We've seen that on immigration fights. We've seen that on other bills. Just given the narrow majorities that we have, a comprehensive bill is very unlikely, I think, to get the kind of support it needs, and that's why the president's backing carjacking will be important. There are so many layers to this, to addressing this issue. You have the mental health component. You've heard lawmakers in there talking about some of these state laws that would have allow family members to petition the courts to have people's guns seized if they're not mentally fit. So that could be something looked at as well. You also have, of course, all of the things that went wrong within the Broward County Sheriff's Department, all of the tips, the FBI, of course, and then you have the issue of the guns. So there are so many layers to this. And I will say also that these moments of opportunity to get something done on legislation like this are so few and far between that lawmakers are going to feel compelled to kind of throw everything in, try to get everything in there to get something out, and that also muddies the system. Muddies the waters, I should say.
Still so fascinating to see this debate taking place.
Absolutely.
And us being invited to be allowed in to watch. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you for joining us, Caitlin.
Thank you.